Este ano não preciso. Okay, thank you very much to all of you being there in this session. I would like to welcome you all to INESTech. Rafael, thank you very much for bringing this event here to our facilities. INESTech is an organization that works for more than 35 years in innovation, making this bridge between academia and companies and economics. And what we've seen in the last years was an acceleration, growing speed in terms of technological development, which means that both companies and research organizations need to invest more and more in research and innovation. And due to the shorter life cycle of technology and solutions, we need to recover this investment in a shorter and shorter period. So we are facing a typical return on investment challenge, like any other company, when it comes to investments in research and innovation. So the issue of sustainability in innovation is becoming more and more important. So we have the different dimensions of sustainability. I will address this issue of the economic sustainability of investments in research and innovation. And this book also addresses very much this topic, looking and giving hints and studies and examples on the challenge around this topic, and also how this can be addressed, on how this problem can be minimized, and how this investment can be taken into an impact into economic and society. So I found it very, very interesting. There are a lot of information here, a lot of cases where I see myself. If I remember my last years of experience in this area, we can see that there is a lot of, this book is written with people with experience of dealing with these issues. So thank you very much for being here, but thank you very much also for you and the team for making this book that is very useful, and I'm sure it will be helpful for many researchers and innovators in Europe and across the world, we hope. So thank you very much for being here again, and the floor is yours for the presentation.
Yes, thank you very much for this kind invitation and for the possibility to finally organize this public launch, both face-to-face, physically and online through your YouTube channel. And when I say finally, it's because we have been waiting and postponing this event for quite some time because of another challenge that has shaken our societies and our life, both work and personal lives, in many months and the last couple of years, I would say, dramatically. when we started working on the topic that is very much the focus of this book, of governance and management of sustainable innovation, we were addressing one of the 7 societal challenges of the previous framework program, which is still hitting us, is climate action, resource efficiency, the environment, and raw materials. These challenges continue and are shaking as well our societies in many parts of the world because of climate change consequences. And we started working on this with an acknowledgement that we need to develop a new approach, a bottom-up, with public engagement, a mobilization and mutual learning approach to better understand, to better assess, and to better manage sustainable innovation, in general with a focus on some grand societal challenges. But when we finish our research, which is still actually, is not possible to finish research in this area, but when we finish the work and we decided that we were ready to write the book on governance and management and sustainable innovation, we were hit by the pandemic. Another grand societal challenge that is still ongoing. And because of this, we had to postpone the launching of the event. But finally, thanks to you and thanks to the many organizers of not only INESTEC, but the whole consortium of 5 UNESCO organizations, especially the coordination of INESC Brussels Hub, we are here. And I would like to give the floor briefly to the lead editor of the book to describe the story behind the book, the project that inspired many of the chapters. And after his presentation, then I will have a short presentation as well about the main ideas behind the book as well, and a kind invitation to everyone in this room, as well as those who are joining us online, to read the story that we put to the public, to learn, and to help us co-create a more sustainable future. Actually, the story is not over because as Mattia will finish, the lead editor, Mattia Martini, is joining us virtually from Italy. And because of the pandemic, it was challenging for him to be here. And Mattia, you can tell a bit more about the book, its origins, the project.
Yes.
Very much.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Rafael. Good afternoon, good night, good evening, everybody. I'm very pleased and happy to be here today for the first launch of this book titled Governance and Management of Sustainable Innovation that has been published by Springer in August 2020 within a series Sustainability and Innovation. First of all, let me thank INESTEC for having organized and hosted this event today, and also Rafael, who has facilitated the organization, all the process. And I have edited this book together with colleagues and friends, Rick Hölsgens from the Social Research Center of the Faculty of Social Science of Dortmund University in Germany, and Rafael Popper, who among many titles is today the director of CFI Research Center in Poland. And as Rafael said, today is the first official book launch event since the book was published in 2020. And due to some pandemic problems that we have all experienced, we have delayed this great event. So today I prepared just a few slides for supporting my speech. And I'd like to first of all tell you where the idea for this book come from, and then introduce you to the aims of the book, and also provide an overview of its contents. And finally, I would like to spend a few words on what will come next based on this project. Let me change the slide. Okay, so first of all,
Mattia, you need to share your screen.
Okay, but I'm in sharing.
Okay,
this.
Perfect.
Okay, can you see? Okay, good. Okay, this is the first slide, so no problem. So I started by spending a few words on where the idea of the book come from. So between 2014 and 2017, me and also my co-editors have had the chance to take part as partners in this European project called CASI, which was funded by the European Commission within the 7th framework program. And had an ambitious aim, which was to develop a methodology for the assessment and management of sustainable innovation that was shared among a wide range of stakeholders. So the project was a collaboration among 19 partners, which included universities, research centers, private companies, municipalities, and NGOs, which together covered 12 European member states. So CASI was for us a sort of unique chance to study and deepen sustainable innovation topic, which was and still actually is characterized by unclear boundaries and so we had the chance to study this topic from different perspectives. In addition, we have to say that if today sustainable innovation represents a mainstream topic together with sustainability, when the project started, it was little talk about, and especially at the level of scientific research, it did not receive great attention. So during the project, the topic of sustainable innovation was addressed and deepened through a learning by doing approach, I would say. So a constant dialogue with operators and stakeholders who were directly or indirectly involved in sustainable innovation processes, as well as through the analysis of many and different sustainable innovation projects. In particular, also through the use of the common framework, the so-called CASI-F framework. During the 3 years project, we have analyzed about 600 sustainable innovation projects in Europe and abroad. We have involved citizens in 12 European countries through participatory methods, with whom we have co-created EU policy recommendation for supporting sustainability-oriented innovation. And finally, we have organized many workshops and seminars to which different type of sustainable innovation stakeholders took part. So through these activities, we have collected a rich amount of knowledge, a rich knowledge base on sustainable innovation. And the idea of the book was born exactly with the aim of enhancing the knowledge that was created during the CASI project through a sort of action research. And in particular, to read this knowledge in the light of the recent literature and the practice-based and learning by doing approach that stand behind the book is highlighted in some way in the subtitle of the book, that is learning from experience to shape the future. Furthermore, building on multidisciplinary background of the contributors, the book aims to provide evidence, insights, and reflection related to specific issues of government and management of sustainable innovation. The multidisciplinary approach is a further characterizing trait and strength point of this book, I will say. Sustainability and sustainable innovation, in fact, are transversal issues in nature, which require to be studied from different angles to be effectively understood and probably to be effectively promoted. Now what you can see is the overall table of contents of the book, and the final contents are the result of a sort of call for paper that we launched in 2018 to all the CASI project partners. The result is a collective book composed of 10 chapters by a total of 19 contributors, plus a preface prepared by the 3 editors and a foreword written by Jan Miles, Professor Jan Miles from the University of Manchester. And the book is structured around 3 main sections. The first part of the book presents the conceptual framework and the theoretical context of sustainable innovation. Substantially, the first section provides the foundation for the remaining parts of the book and serve to illustrate how the empirical data used in the next chapters was collected. So here, the first chapter from Rafael, for example, presents the CASI-F methodological framework in detail, while the second chapter provided updated literature review to introduce the reader to the topic of sustainable innovation and its emerging issues. And the third chapter in this section presents the 7 types of sustainable innovation and then focus on the role of social innovation for sustainability. The second part of the book focuses on participatory governance of sustainable innovation, as it highlights the role of public engagement in enhancing sustainable activities. Here, chapter 4 explore how different configuration of stakeholder engagement influence the generation of sustainable innovation by assessing in particular a sample of agri-food Italian companies. The next chapter show how involvement and participation of citizens can contribute to the EU policy agenda on sustainable development. And the last chapter, chapter 6, also consider the role of stakeholder engagement, but in this case, in the context of sustainable innovation in the public organization. The last section, the third part of the book, focus on the management of sustainable innovation, and then draw attention to sustainable innovation critical issues and key aspects linked to the most relevant phases of the innovation process. Here, chapter 7 assess sustainable innovation business models and identify drivers that can support and favor the diffusion of such initiatives, while chapter 8 explore the importance of addressing both the innovators and the adopters when trying to diffuse sustainable social innovation. Chapter 9 take a closer look at the lesson learned from the analysis of critical issues which emerge from the assessment of 200 and plus sustainable innovation initiative in Europe and abroad. And the last chapter reflects on the growing need for an hybrid framework for sustainable innovation assessment and management that integrate both qualitative and qualitative approach. Here you can see some numbers, some recent achievements of the book. We have recently received from Springer the data related to the chapter download, which are just over 2,400 from August 2020 to November 2021. Obviously, it is difficult to say if they are many or few, but of course, our hope is that the book will be of interest and stimulus for further research and innovation for a wide audience, which can include scholars, practitioners, and policymakers who are interested or even involved in sustainability-oriented innovation process. Finally, I would like to close my presentation by spending just a few words to say what is happening now, building on the work realized during the CASI project, during the preparation of this book. In particular, me personally, with my team within the University of Milano-Bicocca, and in particular the Department of Business and Law, are now start a collaboration with Rafael Popper and the Future Diamonds for the development of Bolero, which is a new research infrastructure of the University of Milano-Bicocca, and which will be built on the basis of the CASI-F framework. And considering the importance that the issue of sustainable transition is assuming in Italy, such as in the rest of Europe, obviously, this research infrastructure and Bolero have different aims. In particular, the first aim is to provide support services to the local business for the assessment and management of sustainable innovation projects. The second aim is to collect data and information, continue to collect data and information related to the processes of sustainable innovation projects in order to promote the so-called evidence-based research. And finally, the aim is to develop an observatory at national and local level in Italy on sustainable innovation, which will be a platform for the exchange of knowledge and experience between researchers, operators, and policymakers. So things are going on, and who knows, maybe we will have the opportunity to launch a new book in the next few years. We will see. By now, thanks a lot for this event again, and thank you for your attention. And I leave the floor to Rafael. Thank you.
Thank you, Mattia, and thank you once again, everyone and all the contributors to this book. We will be continuing with a presentation, a short one. And what I can promise is that I'm not going to provide you any spoilers, okay? Actually, when I'm watching a movie, I prefer not to watch the trailers because then that spoils a little bit the story. And I hope that the selection of slides for this launching will not spoil your appetite for the book. To begin with, this project, as Mattia already presented, is still ongoing. And we will be dancing Bolero very soon in Milano. And we are also working on similar type of projects. We haven't come up with the name or the acronym, but within the Łukasz Research Network, we have plenty of institutes working on sustainability issues and innovation of different kinds. So the first message, which hopefully is not a spoiler, is that when we look at sustainable innovation, and are you seeing the slides at the moment? Okay. Yes? No? We're waiting. Yes? Okay, good. Yeah. You see some technicalities, societal challenges. Maybe we have been hacked, so we need to look into security issues as well. Is the next challenge. Anyway, what I hoped for you to take as a message, takeaway, is that when we look at sustainability and we look at sustainable innovation, we are taking into account a very holistic approach to innovation. We're looking into products innovations. We're looking into services innovation, social innovations, organizational innovations as well, how different companies themselves and institutions, they organize themselves and they innovate in the way they manage and they make decisions at the strategic, at the tactical level and at the operational level. Governance innovation policies at the international level, like EU policy, at the national level, at the regional level, and local. System innovation, a combination of two or more of these previously mentioned type of innovations. And last but not least as well, marketing innovation, okay? And here we're not talking about greenwashing that many companies are trying to sell their products as green products and they are not. So we're talking about really ways in which through marketing innovation, you can achieve more sustainable, development. So that's one message, is that we're looking at sustainable innovation from a holistic approach, looking deeply into 7 different types of them, okay? The next message is that this requires a multi-systemic approach as well and thinking, multi-systemic transformations. We have been discussing sustainability from the classical triple bottom line type of approach for many years, which are environmental system sustainability. Here are some examples of subdimensions. Economic system and societal. These are the classic 3 systems that we take into account normally when talking about sustainability. In our work, when we were mapping hundreds of cases of sustainable innovation, we recognize also, depending on the context where we are, that there are 2 other systems that if we leave them out of the equation, then it's not sustainable to maintain a service or a product. You need to have the infrastructure system, okay? In many countries, many developed countries, there is infrastructure to sustain innovation. And when we're looking at developing countries, and even within Europe, there are many levels in which infrastructures are developed. And we're talking about physical infrastructure as well as virtual, digital platforms and digital infrastructures. And then the government system and the governance, regulation, because it's not only about having the infrastructure and the technology and an understanding of how sustainability can be achieved at economic, at societal and environmental level, but you need to have the regulatory system in place, the policy mix, okay? And this is the way in which we were operating for several years in the context of this action research project. And we developed an approach which ultimately we call KCF. And the KCF approach consisted of 5 steps. The first step and the second and the third, we had 3 steps, a little bit like ready, steady, go. But these were assessment steps. And it was very much an inductive approach where we took the bold decision of nominating hundreds of different cases of sustainable innovation across the whole EU 28, because the UK was still in Europe, okay? And we nominated nearly 200 products innovations, over 100 service innovations from each of these categories. And this was a process that took us several months with a team of 19 partners that you saw there, plus country correspondents, so we cover the whole EU. And then we had a team that was doing a second type of assessment, where we were using different type of criteria to recognize from this list of over 500 the real case studies that were fulfilling the previously presented approach of multi-systemic transformations. Okay? And these multi-systemic transformations taking beyond the triple bottom line, we were looking at governance and infrastructure system transformations. We selected 202. And the reason why we have 202 and no more or no less is, but we selected the top 6 from each of the 28 member states. So sometimes the top 6 from one country was actually not as good as the top 10 from another, but we had to cover the whole EU. And then we allow some flexibility after a certain threshold was agreed with all partners to top up the list. And then we exceeded the 200 to cover all areas. The assessment that led to the following criteria for management was even more complex. We were trying to learn from experience, which is the subtitle of the book, to shape the future. And learning from experience required the creation of a very large data set of what we call critical issues, which consisted of 4 different types of issues. We had more than 400 barriers identified and linked to all these innovations, to the 202. We had more than 400 drivers, more than 400, almost 500 opportunities identified linked to the specific innovations we were looking at, and more than 300 threats. And these critical issues, which is nearly 2,000 of those, were also analyzed. We did meta-analysis of all these critical issues, and we arrived to different type of lessons for managers, because there's no manager, CEO of a company, CFO, or even mid-level manager who will read this list of thousands of critical issues. So we engage in a process of learning from experience, and with different methodologies and workshops, we arrived to 60 half tweets, very short and sharp pieces of advice. Of course, the database is publicly available, so you can look at each of the 1,721. Actually, the list is much larger because the project's still alive, okay? And what we did was, okay, how can we convey a message that will transform this learning into some solutions or some pieces of advice that can shape the future of the managers? And then we created a list of 60 lessons. But in addition to that, we did a different and parallel analysis of all these 1,700 critical issues, and we arrived to a list of 50 critical factors that are shaping the future of sustainability, regardless of the sector, regardless of the type of innovation. And we reclustered those 50 into 10 aspects and 4 dimensions that eventually became our management framework. So the next steps of the framework are actually a byproduct, okay? This research, as Mattia already put it, into very simple words, was an action research. When we started this journey, we didn't want to start with preconceptions about sustainable innovation. We said, let's see what's on the ground. Of course, we did literature reviews as well, and there is a chapter looking at literature. But we wanted to get our hands dirty, and we wanted to reach out to the innovators and to try to solve their problems. And sometimes a problem is that you have an opportunity and you don't know what to do with it. And that's a problem, okay? You might also have serious problems. You might have threats. You might have a lot of barriers, economic barriers and technological barriers. But all these critical issues, they had to be analyzed in order to create the right management framework, which we call CASI-F, in order to help the innovators to better take control of the steering wheel of their own organizations. But we had to do it together. And in this process as well, we realized that we have so much data, so much information, that we shouldn't only focus on the innovators and the management for the innovators, because ultimately this project and the whole exercise was organized in the framework program, in the context of the framework program. So we realized that we have plenty of information also to shape policy agendas. And from the 202 sustainable innovations, we analyzed through the mapping, there were nearly 2,000 specific objectives of those companies, of municipalities. We were mentioning, Mattia was mentioning, there were also municipalities. And what do we do with all this data? Well, let's analyze. Let's learn from experience. So for each type of innovation, we arrived to a list of priorities. If you don't care about product innovations because you're doing research into services, then we produce a list of 18 priorities for service innovations in the context of sustainability. If you care about social innovation, then there are 11 priorities. Altogether, there were 76 sustainable innovation priorities by innovation type that we identified, and we created an agenda out of this. And these agendas consist of 10 research and innovation agendas, which is a byproduct of this process. It's very inductive. Once again, this was not in the work description, but we realized that we couldn't continue moving forward without making use of all this data, because one of the challenges of generating data is that you want to use it. And when you realize that there are multiple users, you need to activate multiple processes in parallel. But let's go back and think about the innovators themselves, the managers. So when we were thinking about the innovators and the managers, we also had to think about where to focus. And we had to be realistic as well in the use of resources. The grand challenge is related to climate action, resource efficiency, and we had to be resource efficient, and we selected 43 pilot studies. The main criteria for selecting these 43 out of this 43 out of the 202 was the commitment, the engagement, the capacity to mobilize. This was a mobilization and mutual learning project, so the capacity to mobilize the CEO, the directors of research and innovation in the company, in the organizations, in the municipalities, those who make decisions. So we had a wide range of projects that cover the quadruple helix. We have projects in the pilot cases that were government-led, projects that were business-led, projects that were research/university-led, and civil society, NGOs as well. So we cover the quadruple helix in the selection of 43, but one of the most important criteria was the actual engagement, the participation of the innovators themselves. And then once we have identified for each of these 43, we started a process of generating multi-level advice. When we talk about multi-level advice, we were talking about at the strategic level, what should the top management be doing? Regarding what? Regarding some critical issues that were prioritized associated to their innovation. So that's top level manager, what type of strategy and actions they can have. Then we also thought about the programming level or the tactical, the type of instruments and mechanisms they should be implementing in order to deal with that internally in their organizations, in their companies. And last but not least, at the operational for frontline managers. So we generated over 700 pieces of advice associated to the specific critical issues. And we said, okay, we need to prioritize a selection of this because we need to be effective. And you tell me from all the advice we gave you, which one do you want us to proceed to develop an action roadmap? But then hold on a minute. Are we going to throw the rest to the bin? No. So once again, we did meta-analysis of all the pieces of advice, and we arrived to 55 meta-actions, which are also lessons, regardless of the type of innovation. These are lessons as well for managers. So we arrived to 60 half tweets already, lessons that can be used for lecturers, teaching, innovation management, or for company consultants. Also 55 meta actions associated to many specific actions associated to critical issues. Okay? But as I mentioned, we selected from each of these actions one per pilot. But there were a couple of pilots that said, no, can you please do 2 action roadmaps, because some of these actions were really critical for us. And we made some exceptions because they were really engaged. And at the end of the day, we applied this framework of 4 dimensions and 10 key aspects to develop, together with the innovators, 46 action roadmaps. These action roadmaps were structured around 10 key aspects, which means that in each action roadmaps, there are at least 10 recommendations. So there is a minimum of 460 recommendations in total that we gave to the innovators. Okay? And we had to analyze them because nobody's going to read all these 400 plus recommendations. And what we did was to create some meta tasks, specific analysis associated to this. And I was very strict together with the team in Manchester and the whole project with Mattia was one of them, and in University of Milano-Bicocca with Dortmund University and with other groups and with Coventry University. We had a strict rule of producing maximum 15 pieces of advice per key aspects. And this is how we ended up with a total list of 150. For each of these key aspects, there's specific meta tasks which are also good for the innovators. And in that single slide, we summarize over 4 years of work. Okay? How we did. 3 steps of critical assessment and 2 steps of management 1.0 and 2.0. And the main lesson from this project is that regardless of the literature that is available, starting as well, taking an inductive approach leads to engagement, to public and participatory approaches that eventually help us to better manage issues of innovations, because before the end of the project, 80% of the action roadmaps were implemented or being implemented. We did an evaluation. We contacted in a survey the innovators, and we asked them from each of these action roadmaps if they have implemented or planning to implement, and they said, yes, we have already implemented, or we are in the halfway and we want more. And because of this, we will be dancing Bolero soon. And because of this, the system is still alive, the current system. But hopefully it's not a spoiler. It's assessing and not rocket science, either assessing and managing sustainable innovation is not a straight road. When we build these roadmaps, we took many detours and many changes during the process, back and forth, talking to the innovators and try to understand, to prioritize the critical issues, to arrive to the right type of advice. And then when you have the actions at the top, mid-level and frontline management, which one will they pick to implement the roadmap? So this road looks like this, and I believe that it will look pretty much like this as well in the future. So I would like to, getting close to this presentation, to share with you that many of these lessons are publicly available. There is a free tutorial. The target was to get 100 participants taking this tutorial by the end of the project. When we finished the project, we had 200 participants taking this tutorial. The tutorial is structured around 6 modules and 12 units. And the slides will be shared. But the important message about this is that you can also get a certification. We have had students also from the master's program that Milano-Bicocca colleagues, they have, many of the students have taken as well the tutorial, and then there's a self-assessment, and you can get a certification from several universities as well, automated certification, which the lecturers can use to check if the student has followed the approach and have learned how to better assess and manage sustainable innovation. And depending on the score, you can have a certification of satisfactory completion or outstanding completion of the course. So this is all freely available. And as I mentioned, the target was 100 participants. And when we finished the project a couple of years ago, we had 200. And now we still have double the figure of participants. And Portugal is quite high here in terms of participation as well in the list. And there are students, also undergraduate students, postgraduate students taking, and this is going out of Europe already. You can see Colombia, you can see Peru, and so on. It is a link to the tutorial. But my last slide, before I thank you all for the participation, is going back. In addition to the tutorial, we felt that we had to do more scholarly work. And we managed to structure all these things that I mentioned before that we did in the 3 steps of assessment and management into a single book. Led again the whole process by Mattia Martini, together with our colleagues in Dortmund, Rick, Hölsgens, and myself. We tried to do our best in order to bring the most from all these different experiences into the 3 parts that were very well presented by Mattia. And I warmly invite you to read us and to read all our colleagues. And this project is not only going on because we're dancing Bolero in Milano, but also this type of approaches we're working in the Łukasiewicz Research Network, especially with the newly established Center for Foresight and Internationalization and our Center for Technology Assessment, together with my colleague Piotr Stankiewicz. We are looking for ways in which we can bring together technology assessment and horizon scanning and foresight in order to bring a more hybrid framework towards this that brings together qualitative assessment and quantitative as well. Because we have done a lot of qualitative assessment in this project. Very little, for example, of life cycle assessment and more quantitative approaches. So together with my former colleagues from VTT, with Tina Payola, we decided to close the book with an invitation to other scholars working on sustainability to help us build this hybrid framework that go hands in hand, qualitative and quantitative, and we're working now in Poland to make this happen. And now with the new project Bolero in Milano, I think we can also open that door and bring a little bit more balance to this sustainability assessment. Thank you very much for coming to this event physically and online, and I hope to see you in the future. Are we still online? Yes, so maybe, thank you, Mattia.
Thank you, Rafael. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for hosting the event.
And see you soon in Milano.
Yeah, for sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Good evening.
Good evening.